This video is brought to you by Squarespace. Squarespace is an all-in-one platform for building your brand and growing your business online. The crisp fall air is coming in. The leaves are changing colors, getting a little bit chillier. I'm wanting to go outside less and less. And that must mean one thing. It's fantasy reads time. Actually means like multiple different things, but we'll act like for the sake of this video it's just fantasy reads. Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today is a TBR video of sorts. It was originally going to be my fall fantasy recs and my fall fantasy TBR. However, I came to the realization that every single like fantasy book that I was going to recommend to you guys is already in this video. So if you guys want my like fall fantasy recommendations, and I talk about the like Sarah J Maas universe in that video, kind of break that down. If you guys want to see all that, it's in this video, and I just did not want it to feel super repetitive, so I didn't include that in this video. So it's just going to be my fall fantasy TBR. This isn't just going to be fall because this is a very heavily ambitious TBR, but I love to read during the fall and winter. I love to read fantasy books. Like, they're just the best time. I don't know if it's just because like once it gets colder and you're inside and you really want to escape from like the dreary winter if you live somewhere like I do, then they're just like the best form of escapism, and I love fantasy so much. And now if you would have told me that like 2 to 3 years ago, I would have laughed in your face because I was never a fantasy girly growing up, never read any books like that, but I am now. So let's talk about all of the fantasy books that I have accumulated that are on my radar. Hello guys, don't act like you don't know what time it is. You know exactly what time it is, and it should be time to start your website, okay? That's what time it should be. But right now we're talking about Squarespace so that you can build your website. You guys know I talk about Squarespace all the time on this channel, and that's because I truly believe if there is a need for any of you guys to start your website, whether that's an online storefront, whether you're wanting to run a blog, whether you're running a business that needs like scheduling to make appointments, anything of that sort, Squarespace is 100% the way to go. I always stress that Squarespace is just so simple and easy. It's very user friendly, which I feel like is very important, especially when trying to tackle something like building a website for your brand. When you're starting out with Squarespace, literally you log on to Squarespace and there are hundreds of templates that greet you. And they're like, hey, what can we do for you? Look at all these templates that you can choose from, that you can customize whatever way that you want. And all you have to do is just click one of them and you can start customizing, whether you want to change the font, the coloring, you want to change some of the layout. You can literally make the design look totally different, but it just helps to see something already put out there for you and you customize it to the way that you want it and fits your specific needs. That's actually what I did with mine. I created like a little blog page for like a What's Desk Reading blog, and I took a template and I basically just made my little website from that template. It was so easy and simple, and I really loved changing up the coloring, the fonts, everything like that. Also, if you are somebody that is using it for like an online storefront, or you're running like a business that needs like scheduling and things like that, there's so many analytics that Squarespace offers you guys. Like, they literally have for scheduling, there's so many different things that you can use. They literally have where you can monitor your website traffic, where they're coming from, what's making them come back. That way you can see like what you're doing right, what you can improve on. You can see how many people are coming. You can literally see so many different things with Squarespace data. And if you're somebody that's wanting to run it kind of like a blog, there are so many different like blogging tools that you can use that it can make your own little community within your website. One of my favorite things is just how easy it is to link all of your different social medias. That way they can also like go to your social media, share it within the blog. It's all so simple and easy. So if you guys are interested, you guys can head over to squarespace.com to start your free trial, and then when you guys are ready to launch, you guys can go to squarespace.com/DestinySidwell to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. As always, thank you guys so much to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video. And let's get into my huge fantasy TBR. I wore this in honor of this video. This is High Lady of the Night Court. It's from Nox plus Luna. First of all, we have this trilogy that I actually picked up like last week. Is there a fourth book, and did that book just come out, or was it this book that I saw at Barnes? But I know that these covers, I think that these are like upgraded covers for this series. I'm not too sure, but this is the Darker Shade of Magic trilogy by V.E. Schwab. There may be a fourth book. I literally don't know. This was put on my radar from Rachel Catherine. She's been reading like a few V.E. Schwab books, and every single V.E. E. Schwab book that I pick up is because she has read it and said something about it. And so I know that she had talked about this trilogy, and I saw it at Target with the new covers, and they just had 3 of them sitting there. So I took it as a sign and I bought them. It's kind of like about like 2 magicians type of thing, and they have like rare powers, and that seemed like an interesting thing to me. And I do enjoy the E. Schwab's writing. It's very easy to digest. That's such a funny saying, very easy to digest. Like, their writing is very easy to digest. Funny enough, we actually have Twilight up next because I have read the Twilight series. I've watched all of the movies, but this fall, for the next few months, I feel like this is peak Twilight time. Like, if you are a Twilight girl, you know. So a video that I'm actually planning on doing is to read the book and then watch the movie in the same video. So we're gonna do like the first part is a reading log for Twilight, full spoiler, and then we watch the movie, kind of compare the two and talk about it. So that is why Twilight is back on my radar. Next up, we have The Wrath and the Dawn. Now, some of these are going to be repeats because I've recently hauled a lot of these books. So if they are, I'm very, very sorry. There's this guy and he keeps on marrying these women and then they turn up dead, and our main character is bound and determined to be his next wife so she can kill him. That seems like just such an interesting premise to me. It's giving enemies to lovers. It's giving like secrets that you don't know about and stuff that's going on behind the scenes. The way I'm just like throwing all of these books on the ground. This is gonna be me in like 20 or 30 minutes is gonna be so glad that I'm doing this right now. Okay, next up we have The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. Now, this one's actually kind of towing the line of just like fiction and fantasy, but we're going to call it a fantasy since it does have that magical realism element. This is about a circus, and it comes around just like with no warning, and I'm pretty sure these 2 people are like up for the same thing. Yeah, a fierce competition is underway, a duel between 2 young magicians. Only one is going to be left standing, but they fall in love. Which, this just seems like heartbreak and magic. And I love both of those. Oh, also, it's not out, but A Curse for True Love comes out in October. And that is, I'm going to be reading it that day. So, very excited for that one as well. That reminded me of heartbreak with fantasy and magic. Yeah, that. If you guys are wanting that, read Once Upon a Broken Heart and The Battle of Ever After. Next up, we have We Hunt the Flame. Again, this is like another YA fantasy book that I just feel like is so widely talked about that I really want to read. This is about a girl. Oh, she's a hunter, and she disguises herself as a man, and if anybody found out that she was actually a woman, like, there would be a bunch of trouble. And then the guy in this book is sent to retrieve the artifact that the girl goes to go after, and his mission is to kill the hunter, but then he finds out that it's her. And if you guys have read any of these books, by the way, please let me know, but I'm so excited for this one. Okay, next up we have A Broken Blade. I have been very into the idea of reading a fantasy that has to do with dragons after reading Fourth Wing, because I want to see if it was just a Fourth Wing thing or if I genuinely really am liking like dragons. She's a killer. As the King's Blade, she is the most talented spy in the kingdom and the King's favorite assassin. And then there's a mysterious figure that moves around, and she's called to hunt down, and then she goes into the Feylands and she realizes that it's basically like uncovering these secrets that she didn't know about. This was sitting on the table at Barnes & Noble when it was like, we don't have Fourth Wing, but if you want a book with dragons, here you go. And it was with this and another book, and I am assuming there's dragons since they said it. That other book was actually this one, which is To Shape a Dragon's Breath. And since dragon is in the title, I'm going to safely make an assumption here that this has to do with dragons. So this one, the remote island has not seen a dragon in many generations until 15-year-old finds a dragon egg and bonds with its hatchling. Oh, and she enrolls in a dragon school on the mainland. If she cannot succeed there, her dragon will be killed. It's kind of giving Fourth Wing a little bit, a little tiny bit. This is going to be in a video at the beginning of October with some other ones, but this is Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. Leigh Bardugo is actually the author of Six of Crows and Shadow and Bone, and so I'm very interested to read this type of book. Stephen King actually has a little excerpt on the front. It says, "The best fantasy novel I've read in years." Fun fact. But I actually, back in like 2021, I actually got this off of Libby and started reading it. But I think like back then I had never read fantasy before, and so it was kind of hard for me to understand. But from my remembering, the main character is at Harvard. Is it Harvard? No, Yale. They're all the same in my brain. Why did you drop out of Yale? She's enrolled at Yale, and there's like this secret society, and they basically mess with this, like, is it like paranormal? I want to see. I'm very interested. I know Heather highly recommends this book, so I'm very interested to see what I think about it. Next up, we have The Bridge Kingdom. It's funny because when I hauled this book, I was like, oh, I haven't really heard anybody talk about it. And then everybody was like, oh no, I think Rachel like read that book a few months ago. And then I was editing that night and started watching, like, I had Rachel's vlogs on like my desktop, and I was watching them as I was editing, and it was literally the vlog where she was talking about this, which made me even more interested to read the book. Now this one, again, it's like she's a warrior princess, and I think, does it like she has an arranged marriage? Yeah, she's sent as a bride under the guise of peace, and she is prepared to do whatever it takes to like honor her kingdom. And as she infiltrates like the guy's kingdom, she like has this deeper understanding of what is going on the other side. Okay, again, then we have Heavenly Bodies. Now this is the one I am pretty sure where I have seen it be described that he's taken from her at one point and she plunges the world into darkness. Tell me that's not a scene. I would literally, look at how thick this book is. I will read this whole entire book just for that. Of course, I want to read my first Brandon Sanderson novel. So we have Mistborn, because I've just heard that this one is kind of one of the easier ones to get into. I'm gonna be completely honest, it's like just so floppy, and like I feel like I would have such a good time reading it. But one of the things that I said, I was like, ooh, it's so floppy, and like it's actually like a big like lengthwise book, and so it would probably be fairly easy to get through. And then I opened the book and saw the font size is so minuscule that I, you know, kind of had a Red Rising moment when I opened the book, and I was like, wow, this is a lot of words fit onto one page. Cool. Okay, then we have The Stars Are Dying. This I am just so perplexed by. You guys know the whole entire like shadow, you know, shadow guys in the fantasy realm that everyone obsesses over. I remember just seeing that they were like a new shadow guy to obsess over in this book, and for that alone, I want to read The Stars Are Dying. Okay, and then we have One Dark Window. I feel like everybody's wanting to read this recently. I remember seeing a TikTok about this. I think I said this. When Fourth Wing was getting its hype, like back in May, I saw a TikTok about a girl, and she was talking about how like she left Fourth Wing. She was trying to find other videos of people talking about Fourth Wing, and this woman was like, it's my second favorite fantasy book of the year. And everybody was like, well, if that's your second favorite, what's your favorite? And she said this one. I have just been wanting to read it ever since then, and I feel like October honestly may be the month for me, because I just am very perplexed. There's a lot of fantasy books that I want to get to in the month of October, and this is at the top of my list. Then we have The Shadows Between Us, purely because this is like an OG book talk book to me. Oh my god, I looked up at one of the spines and it has like a leaf or something on it, and I literally thought it was a spider, and I almost just like, I felt myself have a heart palpitation. Back to this. This is like an OG book talk book. I remember when I didn't really know much about fantasy and people were recommending fantasy, The Shadows Between Us was one of them. And it's funny because I'm calling it an OG book talk book, but I feel like I haven't seen or remember like people actually like talking about it though. Like I haven't like seen on the booktube space, because you know on book talk when people do the little like recommendations, they're kind of like pulling off the pile, but they don't really like say what it's about or like say their thoughts on it. I go to booktube for that, and I haven't seen anybody talk about this, but I know that the first line, it was like in those, you guys know if you guys were on like OG book talk where people were like, the opening line, and the opening line of this one was, they never found the body of the first and only boy who broke my heart, and they never will. Like that does grab your attention. I literally think that this may be one of the first books that I read in October, purely because of Bestie Sarah, and she has been like obsessing over this, and I just have to know. When one of my very, very besties talks so much about a book, I have to know. I have to know what it's about. We have The Prison Healer by Lynette Noni, and this I had seen going over TikTok when I was on my book buying ban, and then Sarah picked it up and read it, and she was obsessed with it. She is obsessed with it, and now I need to know why she's obsessed with it. If I'm going to be obsessed with it, are we going to be obsessed with it? From what Sarah has described, it seems to be like this girl works at this high security kind of prison, and there's this like queen or something, and she's captured. She's supposed to compete in these kind of like games, and she takes her place. Don't take my word on that. On that same exact note, we have Powerless. If you guys know Bestie Sarah, she has literally been recommending this everywhere. I was actually with her when she read this book, when she started it, and I saw firsthand her giggling, kicking her feet, just absolutely swooning over this book. And I love when a fantasy does that to you. So I have been having this on my radar. And this again is another one that I would definitely be getting to very, very soon. Next we have Aragon, I think is how you pronounce it. This edition is so beautiful. I found it at Books A Million. I really want to see if the other two books or more in the series have a special edition like this, because I want to own all of them. When I talked about wanting to read books that have dragons and stuff in them with fantasy, I got so many recommendations for this series, and even since then I've just gotten so many people recommending me this. I have no idea what it's about. None. I just know that there's a dragon on literally every single cover that this series has to do with. So what? Zilla? I'm so, yeah, that was not normal. All that it says on the back of the special edition is ride the dragon, inherit the legend. And you know what? Not to compare every single thing to Fourth Wing, but it does kind of give Fourth Wing vibes. Okay, next we have Scythe, and this is one that I feel like I just always see people obsess over and talk about. And again, I feel like it's one of those rite of passage things. Like, how am I reading fantasy, but I'm not reading like the fantasy books, you know, like the YA fantasy book? And I feel like this is one of them, and this is basically where like these scythes are kind of like Grim Reapers. They're like, scythes are the only ones that can end life, because in the society they're living in, they've like conquered everything. It says no hunger, no disease, no war, no misery. Humanity has conquered all those things and has even conquered death. And scythes are the only one who can end life. And so Citra and Rowan are two apprentices to the scythe, that neither one of them wants to be that, and they have to master the art of it and all that stuff. And so I'm very excited to see, because that seems so interesting. Then we have Firekeeper's Daughter, and it says keep the secret, live the lie, earn your truth. And I just heard that this is an amazing fantasy book, which is an amazing book, period. It's literally won awards, and that just seems like something, like, it just seems like a good piece of literature. I don't know what it's about at all, but you know what, sometimes it's fun to keep it that way. I don't love, especially with fantasy books, because I feel like when you read the back or the synopsis of a fantasy book, I feel like it gives away a lot of what happens. I'm holding up this one because the second one is somewhere else in my room right now that I don't feel like going and finding it. But also I do want to continue on with Cassandra Clare's series. I really want to get deep into Cassandra Clare. Like, I just want to know. There's just like so many stories that I know, because I really enjoyed this book. Like, I really loved the writing, I loved the world and everything. Just the ending, I say it every time, the ending threw me off to where I never wanted to pick up the second book, but I'm going to prevail through it. I'm going to persevere, persevere, Destiny, persevere. But I do really want to get into Cassandra Clare. For some reason, her books scream winter. The last book that we have is The Priory of the Orange Tree. One, I know everybody obsesses over this series, but also I just want to say that I've read this. I just want to look you guys in the face and say that I read this, because I feel like you deserve a medal after... Ow, I just hit myself in the face. And that hurt, because this is a huge book. I feel like this is just... How many pages is this book? Oh, we're like in the 800s. Ooh, there's a glossary. Oh, okay. This is good. This is good. Okay, guys. So, those aren't every single fantasy book that I have on my TBR, but those are the ones that are like at the tip top. The ones that I'm super, super, super looking forward to. So hopefully you guys got some fantasy books out onto your TBR. Again, if you guys want my fantasy recommendations, go watch the fantasy video. I talk in depth about pretty much all of the fantasy books that are on this shelf and behind me, and ones that I've read and ones that I recommend. So if that's something that interests you, go to that. And maybe you can find even more reads that you want to read this fall / winter, or even spring, or even summer. Whenever you want to read a fantasy book is always a great time to read one. So thank you guys so much for watching today's video. If you guys liked, you guys know what to do. Like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube stuff that you guys know how to do. And I will see you guys when I see ya. Peace.